They run into issues where they're trying to get initiatives passed, but the town votes them down, and they need to build trust and they need to build support in their community, and they know that transparency is one way to do it.
Welcome to UpTech Report. This is our Founders Journey series. I'm excited to be joined by Chris Bullock from ClearGov. Part one of our interview, we heard how he founded ClearGov to really solve initially the transparency issue around local government, but it's evolved into overall budgeting. And it's fascinating to hear. Definitely check out part one if you want to hear more about their product. But this interview, I want to dive a little bit deeper, Chris, into your story. How did you get to where you are today? And you can start before ClearGov, even before 5 years ago.
Yeah, I went to University of Colorado in Boulder, got a degree in marketing, and entered the business world just kind of in a sales role. I founded a couple companies after that, really kind of random industries, everything from an importing business to a custom clothing line to a software business, and frankly had some successes and had some failures, but even in the companies that didn't work out, I think just learned a ton. Eventually joined moved back home to the Boston area and joined a company called Shareholder.com, which was actually a transparency company for public companies. In the early days of the early 2000s, a lot of public companies starting to go online and needed to start being more transparent to the financial markets, putting their stock charts, stock quotes, SEC filings online. So I was in business development there, did sales there, and that really kind of I learned a lot about how companies view transparency, and so that kind of started that vein in my career.
Kind of set the tone for ClearGov.
Yeah, we then moved into a product that gathered scraped data off of SEC filings to see what fund managers, what stocks they were buying and selling, and created an online database for companies to better understand and target potential investors. So for instance, one of our early clients was Google. When they went public, they wanted to see what investors were buying Apple and Microsoft in New York. So when they went to New York, they knew who to meet with. That eventually caught the attention of NASDAQ, and our company was acquired. And I spent a number of years at NASDAQ, moved into product development. I've always had a passion for product development. And that was quite a unique ride. We were really kind of the part of the founding of this corporate services division at NASDAQ, where once a company got listed on NASDAQ, they would have software services to sell to them. And so we ended up buying a number of companies to really build out that suite of services. And it was a great company to work for. I learned a lot, but it's very, very different from a startup and a smaller company. And
longing to be back in it.
Yeah, I wanted to be back in the startup world, and as luck would have it, the founder of Shareholder.com, this guy by the name of Ron Gruner, a very successful entrepreneur, founded this other company called Sky Analytics, and asked myself and another guy from NASDAQ, Doug Ventola, to join as co-founders. And the idea behind this company was legal transparency and analytics. And I was not a big fan of the legal industry, but the ability to maybe bring some transparency to that industry, I thought was kind of unique, and eventually joined that company as chief marketing officer and co-founder, and really spent my time on marketing and product development. And there, our data set was legal bills. So we convinced companies like Apple and JP Morgan Chase, Johnson & Johnson, RJ Reynolds to send us all their legal bills. And we would scan those legal bills in and built out this database of billions of dollars, where a company could actually go in and type in a law firm and see all their spending with this law firm, see all the attorneys that they're using, and actually compare attorney rates and matter costs. So we could actually show one company if they were overspending on an attorney compared to what they were charging other companies, for instance. So did that for about 4 years, had a great run. The company was eventually acquired, and eventually founded ClearGov while I was at the acquiring company.
So definitely transparency happened multiple times throughout your career. So it seems almost natural that you're just, is it a desire, like an innate desire?
I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I think transparency is important. I think it's important, and I've always had an interest in government, and frankly, I've kind of thought of how can I have a positive impact, and in particularly in the government space. And it wasn't until I had these series of experiences in working at different companies that kind of led me to this point where it kind of all came together. But yeah, it's an interesting vein in my career for sure.
Now, ClearGov, this is the first company that you founded by yourself.
Yeah, no, I founded
several times.
Yeah, I've founded some other companies along the way, but yeah, this one I did start by myself. I had a development firm out of Belarus that I have used in the past, and worked with a couple guys there to get the site off the ground in the summer of 2015.
So, did you bootstrap at the beginning? Did you raise funds? How did you begin as far as launching it?
Yeah, I did bootstrap it to begin with, and self-funded to begin with. Once we built the site, and we actually built the site with Massachusetts, New York, and California municipalities at first, just thinking that they're probably the most tech savvy states out there, and they had good data. Then I went out and gathered the email addresses of every town manager in Massachusetts, and just sent them an email, and literally just said, "Hey, my name's Chris Bullock. Founded this website where we took your finances from the DOR and transformed it into these infographic websites. Let me know what you think." And so I emailed probably over 300 town managers, and literally within minutes, I started getting emails back from them saying, "Hey, this site's great, and hey, can we update our data on this site?" Or they didn't like who we were comparing their town against. They said, "Hey, we want to compare our town against this town." And just ended up having a lot of different discussions with the town managers. And from those discussions, really learned two things. One is that the cities and towns actually do want to be transparent. They run into issues where they're trying to get initiatives passed, but the town votes them down, and they need to build trust, and they need to build support in their community, and they know that transparency is one way to do it, and they're just they saw ClearGov as maybe a tool to help them do that. But the data that we were getting from the state was a couple years old. It was very high level data, summarized data. It didn't have a lot of the details that they wanted to share. So that became the first learning. And the second learning was that they loved the benchmarking of the site. We had one city, one town actually say to us, "Hey, I just spent literally the last 3 or 4 days trying to do a comparison of our finances versus some other towns' finances, and here you come along and just send us a website that does all the comparisons for free." He was literally laughing at me, but he said, "Look, I want to do some of my own custom benchmarking, right? We want to say, for instance, how much our towns in a 25-mile radius that have similar number of road miles, how much are they spending to remove snow and ice?" And so we had that data, and we could allow them to run those custom comparisons. And from those conversations, found that, hey, maybe there's a product here. And literally just said to them, what if I built this for you? Will you pay me $1,000 or something? We didn't want to. What we were charging them wasn't as important as the fact that we could charge them. I didn't want to give them anything away for free. So we signed up, I think 5 or 6 towns for couple thousand dollars each. And, that funded the ability to kind of build the initial product. And, eventually, brought on some folks to help bring on that data, get more data from other states. Also, introduce us to some other communities in the area. And yeah, we're off and running and signed up a few dozen cities the next year. And from there, that's when we started to do some. I started to do some fundraising. Started to meeting some local.
What year was this?
2016.
16. Okay.
Gotcha. So the next year, started networking, doing a lot of networking. Met with a lot of local advisors and entrepreneurs, and one thing led to another, and ended up bringing on some angel investments. One of the investors was a guy by the name of Brian Burdick, who was the president of ZoomInfo, and also of a company called Bizzo. So he had a tremendous background, and said to me, hey, have you ever thought about bringing on a co-founder? And frankly, I hadn't, but I was more than up to my eyeballs in the weeds. I mean, I couldn't even breathe. There was so much going on in the company, and we eventually figured out a way to a deal that worked for both of us. And he came on January 1st of 2017. And was, with his background and his contacts, we were able to pretty quickly raise a round of venture capital.
Funding itself, throughout the years, probably not a stranger to it, and what that looks like. Curious, what's the biggest mistake one could make when seeking funding and also finding co-founders?
Well, the latter, I think that's just a luck of the draw. I mean, you hear a lot of horror stories, frankly. And Brian and I knew each other for a couple months, so it was definitely a shotgun wedding. But I think it worked out well. We have a lot of complementary skills, and I'd say, when looking for a co-founder, you want to look for complementary skills. I really focus on product development and marketing and branding, and he's focused on revenue generation and retention and operational side of things. So we really have a great complementary set of skills, I think. So I think that was real lucky and fortuitous that we met. As far as venture funding, it's just a numbers game, right? It's I think speaking to as many folks as you can, and finding people that believe in what you're doing, that are passionate and what you're doing, and really getting out there and networking.
A numbers game. You're no stranger to numbers. And
well, look, I mean, I've heard, there's many big companies out there that you would be surprised nowadays that they got shot down their first 50, 100 pitches, right? And now they're billion-dollar unicorn companies. So just because you're getting turned down, you just can't let that stop you.
Getting the funding is one step. Building the team and growing the team so you can manage the growth of the company is the next piece. What have you seen are common mistakes when it comes to hiring, and how to avoid that?
Yeah, hiring is definitely something that is a challenge, right? And I think it really comes down to connecting with people, being prepared for interviews, and asking the right questions. It definitely helps to network and know and hire people that you or someone that you're working with knows. We've been lucky enough to bring on a lot of folks that I've worked with in the past, or Brian's worked with in the past, and we bring them on, and they know people. So I think that's been one of the best ways to build the team, is to kind of network out through the people that work there already, because they're known quantities. Otherwise, in a sales team, that's probably a numbers game there. It's a real challenge finding the right people. I'd say that's probably the biggest challenge in building a company is finding the right people.
Beyond the resume itself, what methods do you use to assess the potential of a candidate, of someone you're looking to hire?
You know, I frankly just like to have a good conversation with them. I like to get a feel of who they are or what they're about. And, you know, I talked before about finding smart, passionate, and compassionate people. And I think that you can kind of ferret that out and get a sense for people as you're talking through them. And certainly when you're interviewing them, you're asking them questions about the role and their experience with that type of role and their background. But beyond that, you got to be able to connect with someone, I think, too.
As the team grows, I imagine it's another piece is to manage the culture and the growth of it over the years for you. Well, actually, how big is your team today?
Um, Including our development team, we're probably over about 40 people now.
Gotcha. And what have you seen as lessons learned as far as you grow, how things change and what you need to manage?
Yeah, I mean, look, culture is really important, and we've always tried to do things to build the team, and you know we've had a lot of when everyone was in the office, we did a lot of events, and we had hosted annual biannual parties and Christmas gatherings and things like that. But yeah, it's certainly been a challenge, particularly this past year. We've held Zoom happy hours. We're we're, uh, we're talking about doing virtual card tournaments and things like that. I mean, you got to get creative and really try to stay connected. We do virtual stand up every single day. We do something that my co-founder brought to the table, where a couple days a week we have a question of the day that we ask. What's your biggest fear? And then we'll draw three people's names out of the hat of the team, and they have to say what their fears are. So that kind of helps you get to know each other, or something like that. Each week it's a different question. So there's a lot of different things you got to do. You have to be really, really conscious of building that culture and staying connected, kind of just beyond day-to-day work activity.
I like that whole stand up idea, but pulling out a name, you're like, oh, don't let me be me today.
Yeah.
Um, as you grow, the team obviously allows you to be able to um, manage more customers and be able to take on more customers. For developing and growing on the marketing side, what have you seen are common mistakes or challenges you've run into in on the marketing to be able to get people's attention and say, oh wow, this is something we should take a look at?
Well, I think our market's unique. Look, we're lucky in the fact that all of our target market, all their information is publicly available. I mean, we literally can get the names of every person that we want to buy our product just by going to their website. So we don't have that problem that maybe a lot of other people do, that they need to find their customer. So we can very easily target them. And yeah, so it's a matter of, sticking out from the crowd. And, really, I think thought leadership plays a big part in that. We're trying to keep our finger on the pulse of the industry and offer some forward thinking and valuable content to them all the time. And I think, you start building that thought leadership, and that draws them in, and they start to get curious. So, we just did a webinar, for instance, around, some changes in the criteria around this award program. And we actually used our software to show how you could meet those changes to the criteria, the industry criteria. And so you're providing value to them, talking about the changing industry criteria to get this award, but at the same time, you're showing them your software. So that's kind of how we've stuck out in the market.
Thought leadership and content marketing or getting providing education is all powerful ways if you know your audience. And that's an interesting situation you guys are in. You know your exact list and you just need them to pay attention. How do you, as one who loves data and analytics, how do you track the success of thought leadership and content marketing to say, okay, how is this working? What do you invest in? Where do you put your energy and mindset into?
Yeah, I mean, we have you have to track that funnel, and you have to figure out, what's the top of the funnel metrics and following them through the middle of the funnel. I mean, tracking the funnel through sales. I mean, that's easy, right? You know, how many opportunities have you identified? You know, what's the close probability, and kind of what different stages are they at? So we, you know, being a data company, you can imagine that we're really data focused, and have a lot of internal dashboards around all these key metrics that we tracked, you know, with a very close eye.
Because of COVID, everyone has shifted. Used to do in-person events and other trade shows and conferences, and now everything's digital, and so there's a lot of noise when it comes to marketing, and it can be hard to say, okay, where should we invest our energy and mindset? Have you seen any winners when it comes to types of content or types of marketing efforts online that have proven to be effective?
Yeah, I mean, it has been an interesting year. In the beginning of March, I one day kind of realized that, hey, I feel like I'm more interested in attending webinars now. And, you know, just thought, well, our target audience, they're all sitting at home. They're probably more open to this as well. So we developed a series of webinars around, you know, for instance, how to better budget with a remote team, right? And our software happens to help them better budget with a remote team. So we tried to really focus our marketing attentions around relevant topics, and certainly the pandemic was relevant. You know, another webinar that we were holding is, you know, how to build trust and support and engage with your community when public meetings are no longer public, right? So kind of really trying to keep a finger on the pulse of what's going on, and relate that to your business has been important over the past year to stand out.
Looking forward into next year, what do you see as maybe a largest challenge that you're going to need to overcome in order to keep moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, our biggest challenge right now is just keeping up with growth. And that's been somewhat of a surprise to me. And what I mean by that is, when you get hundreds and hundreds of, in this instance, cities and towns signing up, but it could be companies, all of a sudden you've got that many more people using the platform, and that many more people asking, hey, can it do this? And it should do this. And you just get literally an avalanche of client
Feature
feedback,
requests.
which is a high class problem to have, right? Which is a great problem to have. But you know, a lot, particularly in, you know, in our market and government, they may have a particular report that they want to see, or a particular angle they want to see the number in. They've done it this way for the past 20 years, and they've made the switch to the cloud, but they still need to see a report that does this. And so, and these are often timely things, right? They say, I need to have this report to my board by, you know, August 20th or something like that. And, you know, we do our best to reply to that and respond. And so for us, our biggest challenge, I think, in 2020 is, you know, continuing to build that team to support that growth. I'd say it's a great problem to have, but you definitely have to have a plan in mind, and be able to kind of follow through.
Last two questions here for you, Chris. What any books, audiobooks, podcasts that you have listened to or recommend that you found insightful?
Yeah, sure. There's a few things. You know, I've got a couple of kids and a business here that takes up most of my time, so I don't get a ton of time to do reading. A lot of time when I open a book at the end of the night, I just fall asleep. But there are a couple of books I do read. Most recently, I read a book called Play Bigger, which was recommended to me by our VP of Marketing, Matt Bonatti. It's a book about how to create a whole new category in your industry, and then position your product to dominate that category, right? And so it's a kind of a mind shift of how you think about your industry and how you define that category. I thought that was really interesting. And you know, beyond that, I also recently read a book, Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. He's a really, really interesting character. Had a very, very challenging youth. I won't say much more about it, but your mind would be blown how difficult a childhood this guy had. and the story is about how he kind of overcame this troubled youth and eventually became a Navy SEAL and eventually one of the world's leading endurance athletes, and kind of the mental challenges that you go through to kind of get to those levels. I thought that was really interesting. I also like podcasts when I was driving to work. Not this past year, but when driving to work, I definitely listen to podcasts a lot. And I think my favorite one there is NPR's How I Built This, kind of similar to this. And it talks about hearing stories of successful entrepreneurs and their backgrounds. So a lot of the name brands that you would know they cover. So yeah, I really love that. NPR's How I Built This podcast is a great one.
Last question for you, Chris. What kind of technology innovations do you predict we'll see in the near term, next year or two, and long term, 5-10 years?
Sure. So I think there's probably a couple technology innovations that I'm really interested in and love following. And one is green tech, renewable energy. I just think that has the potential to, not only improve our environment and maintain the earth that we live on here, but I think it can have a big impact on our society. I'm actually one who believes that fusion energy will come a lot sooner than we think, and once we have limitless energy that borders on being free, and that's just going to change society immensely from a socioeconomic standpoint. I mean, you think about what will happen to all the economies that rely on oil when you have this much cheaper green energy. And we're actually we're facing that threshold this year. I believe earlier this year was the first time where solar energy is now the cheapest form of energy. So I think that's really interesting dynamic that we're living through. And I would also say just this whole commercial space race that we're living through right now also catches my attention. I'm a huge fan of Elon Musk and Tesla and particularly SpaceX. I mean, I literally watch all their launches, and my brother's real passionate about them, is always sending me updates on it. And so, I love following that industry, and I just feel real lucky that we are literally in the golden age of space travel, where we've starting to witness the first commercially launched astronauts. I think that's just incredible, and we're going to see moon landings and hopefully landings on Mars. I just think it's a really neat time to be alive, and you can only imagine what the future holds there.
I appreciate your excitement for the future, Chris. I'm with you 100%. Thank you so much for sharing your story and the insight and lessons learned over the years. Definitely, for those who haven't yet, check out part 1 to hear more of Chris's company, ClearGov, and you can go to cleargov.com. Again, appreciate your time, Chris. It was just a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Great time. Thanks so much.
Thanks again, everyone, for joining us. Our sponsor again for today's episode is Terraleap. If your company wants to find out how to better leverage the power of video to increase sales and marketing, head over to terraleap.io and check out their new product, Customer Stories. We'll see you guys next time. Have you seen a company using AI, machine learning, or other technology to transform the way we live, work, and do business? Go to uptechreport.com and let us know.